Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about communication because you know why? Communication can either make a relationship or break it, quite frankly. And I get people asking all the time about like that communication thing. How do you do it? So we're going to talk about it today. But before we do, I just want to thank you and welcome you back to the community, The Business With B. Here we talk about all the business, relationship business, marriage, family business, community business, personal and professional growth, all those things. You know, it's career, it's everything. So that's why The Business With B is all about all those businesses that you guys are trying to mind and grow. So thanks for coming back. So today I really want to talk about this communication thing. Right? I want to talk about, you know me, I like to give points, So we're going to talk about 4 things to communication today. The 4 best practices, the 4 key points to communication, all right? So first, let's talk about consistent communication, okay? That's the first. We're going to have 4 C's. So consistent communication is important because, if we're not talking about it all the time, having a regimen, having a routine around how we communicate, then you get this. I know the women can relate to this, whenever you say, honey, I need to talk to you about something. That's what they do. If you don't have consistent communication, they think you only want to talk to them when something is bad and you want to go off on them about something. And if you have a regimen around communication, then it doesn't always feel like this is a negative conversation we're getting ready to have. You create an atmosphere of communication is regular and it's healthy. So let's first start with, we got to have consistency around communication. We're going to schedule it like we schedule everything else, work, dental office visits, hair salon visits. We're going to have a consistent schedule around our communication. So first is consistency. All right, so we know we have to have consistent conversations, which is great. The next thing we want to do is have clarity in our conversations. That's the second C. And clarity is important because oftentimes we are saying something and our partner or spouse is hearing a totally different thing. One is because they either on their phone, they got all these other things going on in their mind. We have to practice mindfulness, being present. But also one thing we do in our marriage now is we talk, we have a conversation, and then we go back and say, what did you hear me say? Or I'll say, I heard you say this. Can you confirm that that's what you said? Because oftentimes we hear things, people are communicating us, and we have all of our experiences in our head, our background that we bring, which is natural. And so our understanding of somebody's communication can be totally different than what they were trying to intend, right? Because it's based on how we experience things. So I'm hearing what you say, but I'm taking my experiences and I'm pushing out an analysis of it. Could be completely off base. So you want to have clarity in your communication strategy with whoever, not just your spouse, with your children. I heard you say this. Is that what you intended? And then allow them the opportunity to say, I said X, but I want to add this. Or make sure you also receive this. This was a highlight that you totally missed. So clarity in communication is important. All right, so the first thing was consistency. The second thing was clarity. The third C is conflict resolution. That is important in relationships, okay? And conflict resolution is being able to have conflict. Healthy conflict is okay in a relationship. It's actually really good because you can volley back and forth ideas, challenge each other, help people grow. There's a lot of growth in volleying ideas back and forth. So conflict resolution is not always a bad thing, but you do want to be able to understand how to have healthy conflict in a relationship. One good thing about conflict resolution is how you diffuse it, how you combat it, how you have healthy conflict, is you have to actively listen. One thing I noticed for me and my husband is I was always like hearing what he said, but like thinking about my comeback. So I wasn't actively listening because I'm like, he's saying this, I'm gonna say this, and I'm already adding up my 3 points that I'm gonna come back with, and I've totally missed actively listening, like really hearing for understanding. So in conflict resolution and like being able to like hear each other out, you wanna, 1, actively listen. 2, we already talked about having clarity, going back and saying, I heard you say this. And the other thing you wanna do is we like to like have time where we come back. So sometimes we may actively have a discussion and sit on it. Okay, let's talk about this. tomorrow. Like, I hear what you're saying. This is what I heard you say. I'm not going to respond until tomorrow. I'm going to take some time away. So for us, that is very helpful in not triggering a response right away, because sometimes it takes a moment to have the information resonate with you, for you to have your own analysis of the information, you to think about and have really good, fruitful time to kind of understand how you want to come back with empathy, understanding, and just love, quite frankly. You know, we're still married. We're still in relationships. We want to come back with love. We don't want to say something that we can't take back. So for us in conflict resolution, not only do we actively listen, practice clarity, but also we have the third thing, which is come back. Take some time away, come back, and let's address this later after I've had time to hear what you said, let it resonate, and think about how I want to digest it before I have a response or reaction. So that's the third thing. All right, so the fourth thing is conclude, closure. I like this fourth thing because, you know, we talked about the conflict resolution and we talked about coming back, which is a good way to diffuse some of the heat during conversations. But concluding is, you know, like, let's say you had the situation where you talked about something, it was a conflict, you came back. Concluding is about closure. It's let's make sure that we conclude, we have closure on this conversation that we had that could have been actually a heated conversation. Let's make sure that we have some alignment, right? And alignment, do not get that confused with agreement. Alignment doesn't necessarily mean we agree. Alignment means we both heard the same thing. We both said, yes, there's clarity. Yes, you heard me right. Hearing you right and having alignment with what was said does not mean that I agree with you. But it does mean that there's closure. Like, we satisfied the fact that you heard what I said. I felt like I was heard, right? So the person who had the issue felt heard, even if they don't feel like they won the argument, won the disagreement because you bought in. They may at least feel like, well, we are aligned. And so closure is important, because what you don't want to have happen is that there's this sense of lingering going on, because what lingering can cause is resentment, and resentment in a relationship is not healthy at all. So I want to have closure even if I don't have agreement. I want to make sure you heard what I said. You're going to take it in. Relationships are active and constantly flowing. So it may be that you don't necessarily agree today, but that you took on what I said and you're going to apply it at some point, and at least actively know where I am with that, so that there can be some development and growth in trying to resolve for that. It may not happen today, it may not happen this week, but what I've found is that sometimes having that closure and at least having alignment has allowed me to go back and say, you know what, I've been actively trying on some of this that you said. I've heard you because we had that closure. I was there with you, and it's actually worked. So I'm gonna come back and say, you actually have changed some of my mindsets in this. What I've also found is that when I do that, I win with my husband, because he's like, oh, so you did get it. And I see that he buys in more to also my points, because he sees that I value his. So there's really something great to be said about having that conclusion piece, that closure, because although it may not solve for what you're trying to win today, over the evolution of the marriage, you see that having that closure and alignment does at some point offer some value and offer some success later on in the relationship. So you don't have to win today, everything. It's little wins. It's chipping at little ideologies in the relationship that eventually, for the greater good for the two, is more important than the little win for the individual today. It's about winning together. And so what I'm learning is that I don't have to necessarily win today. If I have closure and conclusion and alignment just a little bit today, that's a greater win in the end for us. So those four things are going to be so important as you think about healthy, consistent, constant communication. Is 1, consistency, 2, clarity, 3, having that conflict resolution piece, and 4, having conclusion or closure in your conversations. Okay, I hope it helps you guys. If you heard something that you like today, make sure you like, subscribe, click on the notification buttons, share it with a friend, come back often and regularly. At the end of the day, we all are trying to just navigate these obstacles that life gives us day in day together. So we're trying to grow in our personal relationships, our professional relationships, our family relationships. We're trying to have healthier communities, and we are doing it together. So thank you, friends.